of the National Economic School System. Reverend Hines, please open prayer.
God, we give thanks for another day. We thank you for blessings we've received. As we share together our ideas and thoughts about our service to our community, may we make thoughts clear. May we make decisions that are beneficial to the community. And those things we do, may we serve well, that you will be glorified. For Christ's sake, amen.
Amen. As stated, that was at our last meeting, the committee meeting. There was kind of proposal that was submitted, and at that time, some of us agreed and some of us not necessarily, and it was proposed that we send it back to our entire board for consideration. At this time, we want to ask Mr. Evans to bring us up to date on where we are.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. You have at your place a document labeled Proposed Agreement. Under that, in red type, says Comments and Proposed Revisions from Edgecombe County in red. And what this was presented to their committee members at our last meeting on May 25th.
Committee being me, Mr. Baldwin, and Ms. Felton.
Yes, sir. Along with three of the Nash County commissioners. Their manager was present, as well as their attorney and our attorney as well. So basically what we did, I took the original proposed agreement that was drafted by Nash County, given to us at the joint board meeting, the full board meeting. After discussion with committee members and then some consultation with other members of the board, the following responses to each of the points were provided, and I reviewed those on behalf of the board at the meeting on the 25th. So I'll just briefly go through these points just to remind us of what our response was at that meeting. Point number one, which is regarding the current expense gap payment that's currently paid by the city of Rocky Mount. It was proposed by them that beginning in year 2018, fiscal year 2017-2018, that Edgecombe County would start, Rocky Mount would start to reduce its gap payment by 20% for each year, so that in 2020 to 2021,
25%.
25%, yes, I'm sorry. So that by 2021 fiscal year, City of Rocky Mount will no longer provide the current expenditure funding to the school unit. If you turn over to the next page, our response to that was that though the board was willing to compromise on reasonable points set forth in this agreement in order to avoid the school split, however, we are not able to agree to phasing in our coverage of the gap payment currently paid by Rocky Mount, considering the fact that doing so would obligate us to proportionately raise the current expense allocation to our own school system, and the financial liability we are putting on ourselves by agreeing to a proportionate share of new capital expenditures. We maintain our proposal to pay the differential if our current expense appropriation is lower than that of Nash County starting in 5 years. So that was our response at the beginning of the meeting. The second point is regarding beginning on that 5th year, 21-22, Edgecombe County would appropriate the current expense differential if there is one, and there was agreement on that. Point number 3, which is regarding capital expenditures, including new schools, additions, renovations, existing and future debt service, and all yearly capital outlay, that Edgecombe County would pay its proportionate share based on the percentage of students residing in Edgecombe County that attend Nash Rocky Mount schools. On point number 3, there was agreement. However, we did ask that the language of the proposed bill to include a provision that would require Nash Rocky Mount School Board to annually submit proposed budget to the Edgecombe County Board of Commissioners, and we be given the opportunity to review and make recommendations. And then we noted to see the suggested language in the draft legislation attached. You also have a copy of that. It should be the last page in your packet. And this was drafted by a team of our local legislative delegates, including Senator Angela Bryant, Representative Willingham, and Representative Bobby Richardson, who got together along with their staff to put together this proposed bill language. There was some discussion about the language in the bill, and I think ultimately they were in agreement with what was proposed. Point number 4, we just asked for clarification. They originally said that all capital funds, including statewide or local bonds or notes, so on and so forth, and that should be more appropriate for it to read a proportionate share of all other capital funds. They agreed that correction needed to be made. We also noted that language should be added to create a process to resolve any disagreements that may arise on the computation of the amounts to be paid under current expense or capital expenditures. And we noted the suggested language in the draft legislation as well. And there was some discussion, there seemed to be agreement on that point in the proposed bill. Point number 5 is regarding the prohibiting any legal action from the Nash Rocky Mountain Schools towards Nash or Edgecombe Board of Commissioners. The Edgecombe Board, we presented, did not agree to that provision and should be removed. We believe that if Nash County Board feels they need this provision, it does not involve the Edgecombe County Commissioners, they should seek this independent of this agreement. As you would imagine, there was considerable conversation about that. Point number 6, the school unit will continue to retain the same geographic boundary as established July 1, 1992, and there was agreement on point number 6. Point number 7, upon the effective date of the new legislation amending Senate Bill 612, the name of the school unit shall become Nash School Administrative Unit. Our response was our board does not agree with this point, also considering that this has never come up in previous discussions and was only brought to our attention by the Nash County Board 2 days prior to that meeting on the 25th. Chairman Wiggins felt that it was unreasonable to ask us to consider this matter now or for it to hold up an agreement on the other terms. So after that, as you know, there was a lot of discussion on a number of these points, in particular point number 1, point number 5, and point number 7. The Nash Board of Commissioners called for a recess of their committee. I guess they stayed out in the recess 20 minutes or so. When they came back, Chairman Robbie Davis was called on by the Chairman Belfield to speak on behalf of the board. And you'll see at the bottom of that page, I noted the revisions to their proposed agreement that they presented to us, which is the main reason for your meeting today. Their revision to the proposed agreement was such that there will be no phase out of Rocky Mount's gap payment. Edgecombe to take over the gap in year 4 in exchange for leaving in the provision to prohibit a lawsuit from Nash Rocky Mount Schools and leaving in the provision to change the name of Nash Rocky Mount Schools to the Nash School Administrative Unit, and that to take place in year 4. So that is...
One of the things that also happened is that also at that meeting, one of our counters was to reduce the item number 1 from 5 to 4.
That's correct, yes, sir.
So I think where we are now is Nash County's counter proposal was that they would agree to what we were asking for in number 1, provided that we would agree to 5 and 7. So that's where our discussion is more likely on 5 and 7 in terms of what this board has willingness to agree to. Any comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I want to play citizen advocate for a minute. Who determined or who even proposed, who has the authority to propose Rocky Mountain get out of supporting the school system? How did that really, tell me how that really happened?
Well, this is one of the things that is a request, and
By whom?
it's a request by the National County Board of Commissioners that this happen, and based on this request, if we agree to it, we don't know what the General Assembly will do, but you can ask the General. I probably could ask my legislator to propose this. So any citizen could make, if they can get the legislature to propose it.
But I'm trying to ask, because I've been asked this question 11 times. How does Nash County dictate to Rocky Mount and Edgecombe what the school system that educates the children in the community ought to do?
Well, the only way I can answer that, because they decide that's what they want to do.
But they and us don't match here. And this is what I'm hearing from those who question me, and I've been kind of silent on this. But I need to know how to approach their questions in giving the right answer, because I don't want to misquote anything that's agreed on. I don't want to create a problem. But the question has been to me, who has the authority to tell Rocky Mount and Edgecombe County what to do with the school system that the legislature agreed on in 1992 to operate?
Well, I think they have the authority to ask for it, and that's what they're exercising.
I'm trying to think if you want to tell me they got the authority to ask for it, they just got enough sense to ask.
Well, either way you want to put it, Reverend Hines, but
Because that sound like they're already dictating. And the man last night asked me, said, why are we discussing this school system when it has never been a problem up until now? And then how does one body tell another body what they can and cannot do when they have nothing to do with that body?
it's what we're here to help try to decide in terms of what this board's position would be on those two items that we have not agreed on.
And here's the clincher last night in my discussion with the folks, was that if Edgecombe and Rocky Mount is going to be told what to do, what is our purpose in being a part of the school system to start with?
Well, we have the legislative responsibility to fund the children in the school system that they go to send that money. By the past legislation, which was Senate Bill 12, gave Rocky Mount the authority to continue their funding based on the school system that was abolished during that time frame. So the authority is what the legislation gives you, and the legislation has given that authority. The past legislations has given that authority.
But the guideline is to operate under what they passed in 1992.
And that's what we are operating under now.
But
unless
my question is, as I was asked last night, why are we now dealing with a change in the school system when the proper operation of the school system that was passed by the legislature is working?
Because the Nice County Board of Commissioners say it's not working right, and they have requested that there be legislative change, and that's why we're here today.
But how do they dictate to Rocky Mount what Rocky Mount can and cannot do, and why do we have to agree with what they are suggesting to us when the legislature gave us the operation of the 612 bill, 1992?
They're requesting a change right now.
Okay.
We could propose a bill to the legislature to make changes that we want. Any local body can request a proposal to change, but whether that's going to be.
But my question, as I was asked, why are we making changes?
We are trying not to.
Okay.
Okay.
So
this board is trying not to.
So my answer has to be that our board does not want changes.
We'll see. We'll see what this board does today.
And the reason I'm asking, because if we are told what to do, then I've got to respond to those I'm serving with the answer of what I'm being told that we're doing. And they're asking some rough questions right now, because I got hemmed up last night and got called into a meeting. by some people who want to know why are we dealing with this merger situation or either dividing our school system when it has been working.
We're dealing with it because it was an issue put on the table, and we have to deal with it.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, would it be okay if I make a statement?
Yes, sir.
I think that's a very valid question, and there perhaps are a lot of Edgecombe citizens out there asking the same thing. We've been dealing with this for so long, have had so many meetings, and kind of been focusing on so intently on specific points of agreements that I think it has been easy for us to kind of forget why we're even at this table to start with. I think this board made a clear statement some months back by passing a resolution that you were against a school split. And I think that the only reason that we're really entertaining these proposed provisions, agreements, or whatever, is to try to prevent the school system from splitting. Because we could not be sure that a bill that would be introduced to split the school would not pass. I think we felt like we were in a position to just adamantly oppose all of it up until the point we could no longer be sure that a bill to split the school would not pass in the General Assembly.
The other question that was asked to me then, why did we propose a bill not to split?
Because the Republican Party has control of the North Carolina legislature.
Okay.
That's why. That's the truth.
Our resolution said, that's what our resolutions from our board and most school boards and Rocky Mountain said that we were against the split. That's what the resolutions were all about.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, no problem.
whether we agree with it or not, as a board, as individuals, or whatever our situation may be, or our position may be, unfortunate as it may be, they have every right to do what they're doing as a governing body. We have the right to respond, and we have responded. We respond, and I hope, in an effort to compromise. We come to the table. We've had compromise. This has been going on for 3 years. We do not want to be forced into a situation by state law that makes us do what we have to do. It's better for us to come to this table and compromise as we have than to get ourselves into a war, which has been going on already for 3 or 4 years. So again, the particulars of their ability or their rights, I don't think it's an issue. They're doing everything that's legally right. Could we have done something else? Possibly so. But we're here today where we are today, and we've come to a compromise that seems to me to be reasonable. So rather than focusing on the past, I think we need to look to the future to try to resolve this issue and resolve it to both parties if we can. It's amicable. And it seems to me that we may be close to that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Mr. President.
to Reverend Hines' point, he's hit upon the essence of this whole matter. He's getting a lot of comments from him in Rocky Mountain, and I'm sure of that. I mean, I had calls from Rocky Mountain, West Edgecombe last week after Wednesday myself, and it's a long way from my district. But I think people have the understanding that I'm trying to do what's right for Edgecombe County. But the thing, Reverend Hines, that's happened is, and this is just being plain blunt, there's no other way to put it, the Rocky Mountain schools on the Edgecombe side of Rocky Mountain have been neglected for a long time. So if we say we're going to, okay, we'll take what you give us, we'll take a county line split, then we're going to be looking at millions of dollars to get those schools where the kids on the Edgecombe side of Rocky Mountain can safely and realistically attend school. So that's a big, big problem. Our superintendent has told us in a joint meeting with the Board of Education that there's a possibility that could amount to 12 to 15, 16 cents on our tax rate. Now that affects every citizen in Edgecombe County. The other thing is the kids themselves. They do not want the school split to happen. We saw an arousal of interest from the students for the first time about 2 weeks ago when there was a lot of comment in the telegram about it at that time. And everybody all the kids, they're upset about their 3A standing in high school athletics. They're concerned about kids going to different schools where they've gone with them all their lives. It's just a big no-no situation with the students themselves. And we've always said, all of us have agreed that the students should be on the front burner of however this comes out. So my concern is we've done everything we could to get this to where it is today. And we have basically got what we asked for. The only thing we don't have is something that I personally have been assured that it won't ever be a factor, and that's the lawsuit thing. The opinions that I've had about that, and of course you don't ever know for sure 100% until after it happens, but I've been assured that there will be no language in the in the legislature this year allowing school boards to sue county commissioners. So, you know, that's a concern, but if it happens, it's going to happen statewide, and we're going to have to bite the bullet like everybody else does. And this language that we're talking about is a non-issue as far as I'm concerned. So with the idea that we've worked hard to get to this point, we've basically got what we've asked for. And, you know, it's time, in my opinion, considering the kids, considering the cost to the taxpayers of Edgecombe County, considering everything, it's time to say, okay, we didn't like it being brought up, we didn't have no choice about it being brought up, and we're ready to move on from it now. That's my opinion, Mr. Chairman, what I have to say.
Any other comments from anybody?
I think Mr. Hines wants to.
Go ahead, Brother.
Here's a question that came from Edgecombe last night. Why can't a Nash County school board be sued for not appropriating money for the schools on Edgecombe County side?
You know, I
Who
wouldn't
said
say they
they
couldn't.
couldn't?
I would say they couldn't, but that's not really something at this point that needs to be on the front burner.
Okay, and I'm just, I'm asking this because they called me into a meeting another day this week and give them some answers, and I just want to tell them what we have decided to do as a result of the schools on the Edgecombe side having closed one and then not appropriating funds to update the other ones is an issue that they bring to me, and I need to respond to them.
That's not an issue that would impact the proposal that we have here today, Reverend Hines. It's
Okay.
something that we might could respond to later.
Okay.
Mr.
Thank you.
Oh,
The world is in trouble now.
Yes, it is.
Mike, go ahead.
I just wanted to state my opinion as well, and following up with Mr. Felton and Mr. Boswell. We've all worked hard. I think we've come to a time where we have an agreement in hand that each party has given ground on. And I think questions such as a lawsuit is going to be decided in the General Assembly. It's not going to be decided by county commissioners. The name of the school system. The name of the school system could occur. It could have occurred at any point. A change could have occurred at any point in time prior to today, and could occur in the future. If we, for some reason, did not come to agreement today, and the bill passed in the General Assembly, the name would change upon that passing in this legislative session. The name changing in 4 years, Rocky Mountain no longer a funding partner, I'm fine with that. And I think that in the benefit of keeping the school systems together, the community together, for financial considerations, as Mr. Felton had made reference to, I think at this point in time, we should adopt the proposed agreement with the revisions that are recommended by the Nash County Commissioners. And let's finally put this issue to bed. Let's keep these communities together, and let's move on to a brighter day.
Well, maybe let me pose the board where we are with these items. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I say one thing right quick, and I won't be long. In '92, when this system was set up, and the Rocky Mountain school system was dissolved, Harbor, Edgecombe County was, the same thing was done. as far as the name is concerned, Tarboro was dropped from the name of the Edgecombe County School System. And then this, in effect, would be the same thing happening in Nash County. And now that's going to be a little bit hard to take for a little while, but in a year or two it will make a difference because everybody knows that Rocky Mount is the most vital part of the Nash County school system, and they're going to continue to be, and that's never going to change. I don't care what they name it, whatever they want to name it. So that's just my last thought on it, sir.
Anybody else?
Can I say one quick thing? Mr. Riggins raised a point about the city of Rocky Mount, and I absolutely agree with him. But I also absolutely agree we come to a very reasonable compromise with taking the name out in 4 years when they are no longer a funding partner. Out of respect to the city of Rocky Mount, I do think it should remain in there. It is not something we control regardless of what happens. It can be on the bill, and there's nothing we have, actually we have nothing to do with it anyway, to be frank with you. But out of respect to the city of Rocky Mount as a funding partner for 24 years, I think it was, again, a very good compromise to reach the fact that we can take them out in 4 years. They were in agreement, and we were discussing it. So I think it's a very reasonable request to solve an issue that's been just churning for years.
Any other?
I don't have a problem with it, but I don't believe we're the body that should make that decision about taking the name Rocky Mount out. I don't think we don't have a dog in that fight. I just don't believe that we need to deal with that part. If that's something they want to deal with individually, I have no problem with it, but I don't believe the Board of Commissioners in Edgecombe should sign their name to an agreement saying this should happen. Because we don't have, I don't believe that that's something that we have anything to do with. If that name gets changed, that school board, City of Rocky Mount, and the legislators need to be the one to change it. Edgecombe County shouldn't have anything to do with it.
Well, the only problem with that,
And that should not hold up this agreement when we've agreed to what they originally came to the table with, which was to take Rocky Mount out of the funding. We've agreed to do that in 4 years. That was their top priority for not causing the split, that we pay our proportionate share. We've agreed to that. So this nitpicking to me that they came up with at the last minute is something I don't believe I want to agree to. And it should not stop that agreement because we've agreed to the major points that they asked for.
I agree with Ms. Harris about the major points and so forth, but to avoid a school split, where that name's going to change anyway, we should go ahead with the compromise on the table. We should not let a name and a changing of a name break up these families.
They shouldn't either.
Well, they shouldn't, but let's take the high. Why don't we take the high? Why don't we agree with what they requested? And if in over a 4-year period of time, if legislation is proposed and enacted that holds the name the same, so be it. Things can change in the future.
Yes.
But for us right now, to secure an agreement to keep these children in this community together, let's not get hung up on a name. If you want to fight a battle afterwards over the next 4 years to retain the name, then that can be another fight.
Well, as Mr. Hines has said, my constituents have said, well, they're going to take Rocky Mount out of funding and it's going to be Edgecombe funding. Why is the name just Nash? Why is Edgecombe not part of it?
We're getting into
Getting into anything. Constituents want to know. These are their tax dollars. They ask the question, I want an answer.
The constituents need to know, and I would reply to them, that we're going to keep the community together, keep the kids in the school system, and we're going to go to a name that is reflective of the largest funding agency in the entire footprint of Nash County, and our kids are going into that system as well. I just don't think we need to sit here and hold this community hostage over a name.
Well, I don't think what we agree or disagree to is holding the community hostage. The hostage holding was the proposal sent to us. So we are not hostage holders, and I will not be seen as a hostage holder if I disagree. And as I listen at the conversations, those of us that are from that community may be thinking a little different in terms of what some of our board members are thinking of. I think Ms. Harris just made a statement in terms of the 2 items that they're requesting that we put in this agreement. something that I also think should not be in this bill. We are agreeing to the capital expenditure that Nash County can spend anywhere in that county. And we are being asked to, the only leverage that a school board has to make sure that money is spent according to that elected board wants is the leverage of, through the legal means, is the leverage of saying to the county commissioners, we're going to take this to court. We will in fact, in my mind, this will in fact make the Nash County Commissioners the Nash County School Board. This is what that does to me. And that's a problem. That's a serious problem for us as it relates to, I think what we should do. And these two items were contingent upon number one, if that is not the case, number one was as they originally proposed it with 25%. Road Hines, you better.
Am I understanding you to tell me that appropriations from Edgecombe County for capital outlay can be used on a school down in Middlesex where we don't have any students at all?
That was what we had agreed to.
And that's been the case for 25 years.
That is the case. That is the case already.
But then I thought our funding is supposed to follow the student.
Well, the fund, that's the ADM, right? That's the ADM.
Okay,
that follows the student.
But why wouldn't the capital outlay also follow the student for the purpose of educating that student at the school they attend?
That was one of the things that we agreed to. We have agreed to that as a resolution to this issue. So we have given. This proposal has come from the things that we have agreed to, and this board has given more than any. And I think what I want to do at this time is to item by item kind of hold the board as relates to, we can see where we are.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
can I
yes,
say one thing?
Yes, sir.
Since you brought up just
yes, sir.
a few seconds ago?
Yes, sir.
In relationship to the funding situation in our name, we already currently fund Brownsville Library at $186,000, and there's no mention of Edgecombe County. We cannot debate, we cannot give away, we cannot lose the opportunity to solve this overnight. I understand in each person's mind the importance of each issue, but for the greater good of everybody, we need to look at what we've come to as the art of compromise, and both sides have compromised. I just can't see giving this away over that particular point.
And I don't see giving it away because I don't think that this board, should be a part. Why would they put into a bill for this county to agree that a city's name be taken off the bill? I think that's another legislation. That should be in single legislation. Traditionally, our school board renamed our school system. It was not something that required a bill. Now, I understand that this system probably was named in the previous bill, but this system, so school boards normally do things like this, and it's due. All of this is still, this is an effort for complete control. This completely controls it. There is no need for there would be no need for a national administrative school board if we agree to this. If they want to do it, then they need to seek different legislation to do. If it's a deal killer, it's because they put it in there to kill it.
May I ask you or Mr. Henderson, as short as you can, explain to me what I need to agree on?
Well, I'm not gonna try to tell you that, Reverend Hines. I think that and this is one of the most serious matters that, in my mind, has come before us as a board. And follow your conscience.
You just cannot let the debate over a name break up these communities and these
I'm not worried about the
families.
name, I want to know
We're
what,
taking pride to a level I haven't seen in local politics before. Pride over a name.
what is it that we are agreeing on now that I can tell my constituents why we have this proposal going back to the legislature?
Because we gotta do something with it.
Our hand's been forced.
Okay,
Bill already-
we've been forced to do what? Tell them what we've been
To act
forced
on this, to act on this bill. And that action would be based
to
on,
do. Two things. You were saying two things.
No, there's 7, but we agree on 5 of them.
we
There's
have,
only 2 that we don't
well, we
agree.
really have not agreed fully on number 1.
That's
Because
what I'm talking about.
Well, we've been negotiating on this for a long
that's
time.
contingent upon what we do, so,
Mr. Chairman, we've been negotiating on this for a couple of years, seems like, and we've had meetings where the whole board were involved. We've had meetings where committee members from our board and their board, Rocky Mountain One Times board, and we've worked it down from where we were at to this. And some of us think that they're going to do what they want to do basically as far as that name deal and as far as the lawsuits. That's a much bigger issue than Edgecombe and Nash County. And those are going to be included in a bill that comes out of the legislature, because the legislature is controlled by Republicans. So that don't mean that they can automatically shoot through anything they want to. They've been very generous. The Rules Chairman has had meetings with us. He's had representatives at our meetings. They're trying their best to get us to
resolve it locally.
Resolve it locally. And the only thing that's keeping us from resolving it is something that could be considered prideful. I hate to put it that way. And I understand there's been racial context all the way through this, which is terrible. I hate it, and I've spoken about it. I think it's disgraceful. But that can still be a issue as far as this name business is concerned. The lawsuit, in my mind, thing is a non-factor, because that's either going to happen or it isn't, and we've got nothing really to say about that. But the name thing, that's a total non-issue. That's me saying that my grandsons have to be named Felton when they can be named anything they want to be named. And that's
And we don't care what they name.
that's right.
We don't care what they name. We just don't need that.
And one other thing, Mr. Chairman, they may come out, if we lobby it hard enough and play our politics hard enough, they might agree that Rocky Mountain should be included in that name. We don't know for sure what they're going to come out with.
If we don't do something, the name's going to change anyway.
It's going to
It's not in
change.
our.
They've already told us that.
But to walk out of this room today with a deal in hand that keeps these kids and families and community together, we just need to agree what we've already gone over so many times. And the two issues are really out of our hand, and we're going to let pride. I'll say it over and over. Pride over a name, because we're living where we've been in the past. If Rocky Mount is not a member of the funding formula in 4 years, that's no different than me requesting today to Edgecombe, go back to Edgecombe Tarver City Schools. In the future, it'll be Nash. The families will be together, the community will be together, and we have worked hard for 2 years over this. The biggest issues on the table have been solved. I mean, the money is the main one, huge, and the kids remaining together. Let's not let a name stop this.
So why did they, if it's such a vague issue, why did they include these 2 items here? What I mean?
That's their business.
Okay.
If they want to carry a bill to the legislature that we agree on and say, look, they're good with this, they're good with it, we're good with it, you should be good with it.
When local boards are raised, it kind of becomes consensus local legislation. And especially if your local delegation agrees with it. And
Could we do an agreement where those two items are left out?
You can, and you remember what they said at the table.
Well, they ain't done it yet.
What was that?
They seem
Just
very
tell you
anxious
what
to
they
get a
said.
deal
Well, they
on it.
need to compromise.
They
We're doing
want
all
compromise.
compromising.
Well,
If we don't vote for these items in their entirety, you in essence are voting to split the schools
That's
up
exactly
today.
what you want.
You are out of pride and in essence saying, I don't care enough about the children that I'm willing to change the name, I'm gonna split the children.
Well,
You need to take that back, because I don't know.
Are
why
you gonna
keep
let a
saying-
name
Why you keep
change?
saying pride? I don't live in Rocky Mount. Rocky Mount has nothing to do with my daily life.
Why do you
What
let
I'm
the name,
saying-
why do you let the name of a school
What I'm
system
saying
and
is,
funding
I
part
don't
not
think
even be
we should
funded?
have anything to do with it. If they wanna get it changed, they need to be talking with the school board. That's what they were elected to do, and the General Assembly to change it. I don't think Edgecombe County has anything to do with changing the name of Nash Rocky Mount Schools. That's
You may
all I'm
not
saying.
think that, but if we don't agree to this today, then the school system will be split up.
Well,
well,
that tells me that Nash County has their own agenda, period.
But you could solve it today.
I think,
They could have solved by not bringing it up.
That's not where we are.
where we are right now is, I'm gonna poll the board, start on Tuesday, look like, sound like we hear your position.
My position is to keep the schools together, yes it
And
is.
it-
That's all our
let's-
position.
Let's, you agree that number 5 and 7 ought to be in.
Yes.
Ms.
I agree that they should be deleted.
Any,
Mr. Felton,
Yeah,
Ms. Harris,
Delete it.
Mr. Hines,
Deleted.
so does the chair believe that it should be deleted. Give me, I had Mr. Reverend, still trying to call him up, and I said he ought not to be at this, at this meeting, okay? I had, I just didn't know exactly where we were going, and this is our original proposal that we had, submitted to Nash County. And this is what I'm proposing that we put on the table and send it back to them. But it appears that based on, I'll have a formal vote. Let's have a formal vote on this.
you tell me, what's the vote, what's the motion?
We're gonna have a formal vote on
The agreement as they said it?
as they sent it, okay?
You don't have a motion yet, sir.
I'm gonna ask for the motion. Okay. All in favor of the proposed agreement that Nash County sent on that we just discussed, that it be, is there a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the agreement as proposed with the 2 revisions, number 5 and number 7.
It would be 3 revisions. wouldn't it?
3, number 1, number 5, number 7.
I second this motion.
All in,
Discussion.
question? All in favor, let it be known by the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, let it be known by the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All in favor, please raise your hands so that we can count the votes. 3, all opposed, raise your hand. The vote is 43. Voted.
Your proposal, Mr. Chairman.
This is the same one that we put on the table? This is the same one?
This is their agreement. What is different from what you just discussed? The first thing is under number 1.
We have copies of that.
Here, for Ms. Bessie. You got it, right?
Yeah, we got it.
Go ahead, bro.
So what is different about this than what you just finished discussing is in point number 1, that the current expense gap, if there is a gap, that beginning in year 17-18, which will be, if you count the current year, 2 years from now, that we would begin, Rocky Mount would begin reducing their gap payment by 25%, such that after fiscal year 19-20, Rocky Mount will no longer be paying the current expenditure differential. Point number 2, in relation to that, then Edgecombe County would begin appropriating the full amount of the current expense gap. So in other words, a phase-in to begin year 2 counting this current year. The other differences in what you have before you now from what you just finished discussing is the removal of points number 5 and 7, I think it was, the language about the lawsuit and the language about the school name change. That's the difference in what you have now.
Now, our difference was, number one, we proposed
No money
no money, right?
for 4
No
years.
money for 4 years.
That's costing us money right there.
That's right.
That's,
Are you,
how much of money is that?
It changes from year to
But
year.
it spends $750,000 not too long ago, a year or two ago.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
We
it has
have
been that.
no control.
Currently, it's
I mean, we're
120.
giving up a significant amount of revenue, right, resources right there just to,
Keep the name and
yeah.
Currently, it's, this year, it's 120,000 and some change. Next year, it's projected to be about 300 and something thousand.
Well, I mean, it seems like it's hard for me to justify giving money away when you don't have to do something that doesn't cost you anything. I mean, to not do something that doesn't cost anything. I don't, you know, I mean, it's gonna be settled, but it ain't gonna be settled with any control by us. That's what worries me more than anything else. We're gonna take what they send back down here, and we're gonna be at the good graces of somebody that don't have as much interest in it as we do. So that's where my problem is with it. I mean, you know, I understand how the people in Rockingham feel. I have expressed my being on their side of this issue the whole way through it. But I think it's arrived at the point now where realism has to set in. You know, our feelings have been hurt over this thing, and we've seen stuff come into it that shouldn't have come in from both sides. And, you know, it's time to, we talk about a joint county effort. We had spent some money on a few years ago to get that going, and, you know, we'll never get anything going on a joint county effort if we can't come together on this.
well,
I mean, that's just my opinion on it, Mr. Chairman, and you're gonna control whatever you want to do, so.
I mean, the board controls this bill,
I understand that, but the board's 4-3.
and the board, yes, and that becomes the vote of the board on this particular proposal. We were not, we were, in number one,
Yes, sir.
are you talking about this one about? This is
Yes,
not-
sir. I thought that was my understanding of what you wanted to discuss today. Now, originally, what our last offer was that we start in year 4.
Well, that was the intent of what I wanted to put in this proposal.
I
So the
missed
money would be in,
No, we're still, number one would still be offering,
starting in year 4.
in year 4.
okay.
That would be the,
I'm just going by what.
no, and you're right, but that's not,
That was my error.
this
That was my
is not exactly, year one would be,
So basically, Mr. Chairman, the only two differences are the lawsuit and the name change, is that right?
we took those out,
But everything else would be the same as far as sending it back
in
there?
which Nash County would agree. Nash County had not agreed to number one, as we had proposed.
Oh, okay.
As we had proposed,
Yeah, I got you.
Nash County had not agreed to it.
But we proposed 4 years and they agreed to that.
They agreed to the 4 years.
Yes, they agreed to 4
They-
years.
they
We're
agreed-
absolutely financially
They-
untouchable for
They
4 years.
did, they agreed to 4.
Let me ask you.
Provided
Contingent on those two.
Absolutely.
Would we trade off the immediate, starting to pay that immediately or next year in lieu of the name change and lawsuit thing? Is that where you're at? I mean, is that a trade-off for the name change and lawsuit?
As the board has voted, there's no trade-off for that.
Well, we gotta figure something, they need, we might as well say we're through with it if we don't send them back something.
That's what I'm sending them back what we have sent them.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
you, Mr. Evans, Mr. Felton, correct me if I'm wrong. We agreed in that room at the last committee meeting that they would give up the first item in return for 4 years and no money. We would accept the other two.
Right.
That was that was the compromise. They gave up
Right.
one thing as far as financing, which is a heck of a lot more than what we're giving up on the other two.
That was it.
Is that not what they stipulated?
That's what they said.
We have no agreement if we come back with anything
That's right.
other than that.
That's
Now,
right.
you can call us being forced into it, but you call it whatever you want to do. It is the art of compromise, and it is a fair compromise, and it is something to resolve this. We walk away from here today and we propose something other than what we brought to the table, then we will be in this mess for eternity.
Well, the board has already taking a vote on that.
That's fine, I can speak my part, regardless.
So we are there on that, unless some board members.
I motion we adjourn.
I ruled that motion out of order.
What?
Just,
What was the
we still have a proposal.
We adjourn.
He made a motion that we adjourn. I ruled that motion out of order because the counter proposal is that we send them back our proposal. The negotiation is not complete. If you're saying that we had to agree to that, that was the demand.
I'm saying that we compromised. That's what it was
We are
about.
still in the position of compromising.
Yeah.
And,
So be it.
is there a motion that we send our original proposal back to Nash County for consideration? Can we get that as a motion? Second? Question? All in favor, let me know by the voting sign aye. I vote. All opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed.
That motion passed 4-3. This is our original vote. Is there anything else to come before this board?
We have missed an excellent opportunity today to resolve this matter. We'd rather go to Las Vegas and gamble. Good luck with that.
Is there anything else to come before this board?
Yeah, Mr. Wiggins, I got a letter I want to read.
Yes, sir, please. Go ahead, read it.
This is a letter from Ms. Ann Cobb Warren, daughter of Mr. J. Vines Cobb. You remember a month or so ago, this board presented a resolution to her father, Mr. John Vines Cobb, former mayor of Pine Tops and county commissioner, Board of Education commissioner. This is a letter addressed to Mr. Leonard Wiggins, chairman, and myself as vice chairman, and to all the county commissioners. The resolution presented April 4th to our family in memory of our father, Vines Cobb, was extremely special. We were humbled by the fact that you would extend official recognition and honor for his service and leadership roles. Understandably, our grief following our father's death has been great, but to know others in the larger community share our loss is both humbling and heartwarming. We as a family know we have been blessed beyond measure to have had such a wonderful father. He gave unselfishly of his time and talents to our family and to so many far and near. He approached community service as a duty, and he thrived while serving. Our prayer as we move forward in this life is that we will follow his example to serve in order to help make a difference. Thank you again for the resolution in memory of John Vines Cobb Jr. It embodies the spirit of friendship and love which we will forever cherish. And thank you for the work you have done and continue to do to help make Edgecombe County a place we are proud to call home. With gratitude and warm regards, Ann Cobb Warren, and she's speaking for their entire Cobb family. And I would ask that our secretary enter this as a permanent part of our minutes. I don't think we need a motion.
Hearing no objection, is there anything else to come before the board? Hearing none, is the motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Question? All in favor, let it be known by the voting sign aye. All opposed? Hearing none, we stand adjourned.